Peace, community. Welcome to All Things Genuine Podcast. I am your host, Kamitria, and if you are new, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. Profound gratitude for each of you tuning in and joining me on this genuine journey. Today is Wednesday, or shall I say, Mercury's Day, January 1st, 2025. And I am back with another genuine episode. And today's episode will also be unscripted. Before I do begin with today's message, I would love to take a moment to say Happy New Year for those of you that celebrate on this day. And for me specifically, I no longer participate in celebrating certain festivities as I now celebrate the new year in spring. And spring is when things begin blossoming, and I consider that to be new, hence why I celebrate the new year during that season. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into today's message. Now, today's message is going to be about the importance of having grace, compassion, and kindness. And as always, my messages are rooted in genuineness and given with the intention to enlighten the collective. So I was inspired to come on air and share this message in a way that reflected what it means to be graceful, what it means to be compassionate, and what it means to operate from a space of genuine kindness. And I wanted to speak about these things for a multitude of reasons. One of the first reasons that I'm going to discuss is going to be my sacred journey once again. Over the past few years, God has given me the opportunity to see people and things more clearly and also from a higher perspective. And I was met with a lot of lack thereof when it came to things like compassion, grace, and kindness. I was met with the complete opposite of those things. And what it allowed me to do in those moments, although very hurtful, it allowed me to open myself more and expand, within my heart space. I began to be more compassionate, more graceful, and more kind to myself in essence, because those moments, when you have encounters where you're met with such a disregard and a lack thereof, it invites you to go within and you go on this journey, like for many, the sacred journey, the sacred healing. And we have these perspectives once we come out of it, And I'm very grateful because grace wasn't something that I always gave to myself, but I would always give to everybody else. But when it came to me, there was a lack thereof, and hence why I began expanding. And so I just, throughout this journey, and I don't want to just limit it to my sacred journey. I feel like throughout my entire life experience while being here on planet Earth, I, just like myself, I know that others can resonate with this. I've had many encounters where I've been met with a lack of kindness and compassion and grace and just respect and honor overall. And it just has shaped me into this being. Like, I never converted into those individuals. Like, I never became the people that hurt me in essence. Like I said, I always have that at the forefront to be in balance, to make sure that I am walking in righteousness. My heart is upright. And that's not to say that I am perfect, but the intention is always genuine. And so I'm going to go ahead and move on to my second reasoning as to why I wanted to speak about these things. And that reason is due to a controversial video that I had watched. And I didn't get to watch it in totality because I clicked off towards the ending. I had seen enough in my experience, but this was a video made by a comedian that most may know by the name of B. Simone. And I want to give a disclaimer. I have the utmost respect for her as an individual, and by no means is this part of my episode an opportunity for me to condemn or to make a judgment on a person from that space. My intention is to give perspective and essentially my opinion, because I am someone that is actively embarking on a very sacred journey, and that sacred journey has a lot to do with spirituality. And with the video, she pretty much made some commentary around a few things. And I actually laughed a little bit, through certain parts of the video, because I understood, the context of what she was saying. And I want to say this as well. Everyone has free will to express themselves. Everyone does. And so, like I said, I understood the context, but what I did not like was the mockery of sacredness. And what was said in that video, she made commentary around rocks, quote unquote, which are actually called crystals. And she made a comment about those along with the Bible, and saying things to the extent that if you can't intercede or intervene and pray for, her specifically, then you wouldn't be entering 2025 with her, which is, like I said, once again, everyone has free will to express themselves. And actually, in her own right, she has the right to feel how she feels. But once again, it's the mockery of sacredness. To make a mockery of things that are natural and of this earth, and essentially what God has made and earth creates, it's a bit ignorant to me. And a lot of people made comments, and I thought to myself, wow, before the very end of the year of Saturn, which was a year, okay? A year of exposure, a year of karma, a year of lessons, a year of chaos, in essence. And this year, 2024 really revealed a lot of things, and we all got to see people from a different scope. We got to see truth on another level. And so after, deciding to click off of the video, I saw, some mutuals hit like, and also I saw, I didn't really even go to dig into the comments because I'm very mindful about the things that I consume on the internet. And it's all a part of my protection and things of that nature, because when you know about the mind and you are in tune with your mind and the thoughts that you have, you are very mindful and careful about the things that you allow to get into your mind, to be consumed in your mind. And so I made the decision to, click off of it and no longer watch it, because it became, like I said, I understood the context, but when she continued to make a mockery out of certain things in regards to spirituality, it just didn't sit well with me. And then she went on to talk about religion specifically, with Yeshua, aka Jesus. And what I found to be very contradicting is that people that follow this religion specifically, when I say specifically, I'm speaking about Christianity, they're following Yeshua's teachings. But if they are really familiar, which is most of them are, and I just don't think that the consciousness is there just yet in regards to what they're really saying, Yeshua was crucified. Yeshua was also made a mockery of. And it's very contradicting when I see those that follow that religion specifically and they go out making a mockery of others simply because their set of beliefs don't align with Yeshua's teachings to a certain degree. And I want to emphasize to a certain degree because people realize or don't realize that a lot of us that are in tune spiritually and that are aware of certain sacred esoteric knowledge in nature. I am a firm follower of and believer. Let me say that. Believer of Yeshua's teachings. And I'll tell you why. Because years ago, and I may have mentioned this on my podcast previously, but when I began embarking on the journey, the sacred journey, and in the beginning, it was all about me and God, and it's very much still about me and God. God is opening my eyes to all of this knowledge. And that right there let me know you can't put God in a box. You can't tell me that my set of beliefs have to match your set of teachings. And if it doesn't, you're going to condemn me. You're going to demonize me. When I know that God is omnipresent and God is in all things, the wind, the trees. And people tend not to see these things. And to wrap it up with that whole controversial video that I saw, it made my heart grow for her. I saw her from a lens of compassion. I saw her from a lens of kindness and just grace, essentially, because I feel like when people have moments like what she's experiencing right now, where she blatantly, openly made a mockery towards spirituality, I feel like this is going to be a very teachable moment for her and so many others that have that same way of thinking and same way of approaching spirituality by making a mockery. Now, one of the things I do want to mention again that she said in the beginning of the video in regards to the rocks, quote unquote, she stated something to the extent of putting it in her bra to attract, a man or love into her life to whatever extent. And I may not be saying it all verbatim, but she mentioned something to that extent, and it got me to questioning, just like two other spiritualists in the community mentioned, that they were very curious to know how her approach to spirituality came about. And this is where it's going to really open up everything, because everybody's approach to spirituality is different. I didn't embark on my spiritual journey because I wanted to manifest. I had already been manifesting, you see, and I never went into it with the thought that, I want to attract this or that. Everything was about God, and it's always been about God at the forefront. Now, granted, I do have crystals of my own, but I want to say something about myself. And a lot of other people people that are on sacred journey, they may resonate with this. When people see me, and when people have seen me, especially after the journey, and I kind of went on a hiatus. I went into hermit mode, for very, very valid reasons, right? God prepares you in isolation, and that's what that was for me. And when people see me now, they don't even know that spirituality is a part of my entire being. Because the way I go out into the world, I look as if I am, I don't want to say next to the next normal human being, because we all have very distinctive characteristics and features and things of that nature. Like we're not all alike in the same degree. But what I'm saying is that when I'm out in population, people couldn't just tell me apart and say, oh, she's spiritual. Now, if they looked at me in detail, if I have certain things showing about myself, like my tattoos, for example, I can, kind of cover certain things up. Like I said, I have an ankh tatted on me specifically because of the meaning. And a lot of people aren't in agreement with the ankh and its meaning. The ankh is the key to life in essence. And for those that know, it's not, I wouldn't say it's esoteric in nature, but some people would say that to a certain degree if they didn't know these things. But I'm saying all this to say that people tend to think that because you have, ties to spirituality, you are to be looking the part. Like, I don't walk around, and this is no shade to those that partake in showing up in however which way they choose to express themselves on their sacred journeys. That is not what I'm saying whatsoever, because I love, what I see within the spiritual community with certain individuals and things of that nature. But I just took it as in, wow, the transparency and how I'm seeing individuals speak about these type of things. And when she's made a statement about the Bible as well, I think people forget that Satan also knew the Bible from front to back. And from my personal experience, the amount of people that I have met that were people that were a part of Christianity, these people, and I'm going to be mindful when I speak about it, but it made it very hard for me to associate their walk in Christ. It was very contradicting for me, because if you are walking, in Christianity, in Christian faith, and you're following Yeshua's teachings, how is it that you are making a mockery? How is it that you are making statements as such that are very dishonoring and disrespectful in essence? Because when you mock somebody, I would like to say you can equate it to disrespect to a certain degree, depending on the type of mockery that you're doing. But I want to wrap it up because I don't want to spend too much time there with the whole video in essence. But I wanted to speak about it because, like I said, when I watched her and when I watched to, the time that I could watch, like I said, I saw her from a lens of compassion. My heart grew bigger for B. Simone, that day, because I see her and I see all the other people as well. And all I can say is that this will be a very teachable moment for many. And moving along, another thing that I wanted to touch on in regards to that religion specifically. Now, I know religion can be a bit touchy and controversial as well. So I'm going to be very mindful when I speak about these things. And I want to say it again. My messages are rooted in genuineness. So in regards to Christianity, a lot of individuals love to associate the beliefs and things of that nature to Yeshua specifically. And what I've learned on this journey, because I am very well familiar with the story of Yeshua, aka Jesus, and the teachings of Yeshua. And one of the things that I learned years ago, and this actually, when I say years ago, I want to be specific at most. 2021 is when I had, the biggest awakening of my life. And I knew Christ. I knew about the teachings and the power of Christ. But when it came down to Christ consciousness, that literally changed the game for me for eternity. When I realized on this spiritual journey that my awakening was consisting of my consciousness rising. And if you know the story of Yeshua, Yeshua as well had the anointing of having Christ consciousness. And Christ consciousness is just the makeup of knowing all things in essence. And I hope I'm making sense when I say this, because there's a lot that goes into these messages specifically. And it can be a bit esoteric and complex for some people that aren't even willing to open themselves up to this conversation. You know, it's devilish, it's demonic. And you know, I digress. But what God showed me in 2021 regarding Christ and consciousness, like I said, I have been changed for an eternity. And I also want to go back to the previous holiday that everybody celebrates, and that is Christmas, or Christmas specifically. Christmas and the meaning of Christmas, you know, many have associated with, you know, a holiday and Santa Claus and giving gifts and things of that nature. But what it's really about is Christ consciousness. It's about celebrating that consciousness and that knowing that Yeshua and his teachings represented. And see, some people are only locked in to what the Bible teaches. See, me, a lot of my knowledge comes from the ethers, comes from source, God. A lot of these things come to me because I've always been in tune spiritually and naturally. I'm always in tune with how I'm feeling. I'm always in tune, like, with others in the room, who's around me. I can pick up on when it's off. I read the room, I read the energies, and that's always been a part of me. And all I've done is continued growing, and growing in Christ consciousness has been amazing. Amazing. Especially when God showed me that I shouldn't put God into a box. God is omnipresent. And I have that understanding and that knowing. So, and that in itself is sacred. And I love to see that people are realizing that to certain degrees, those of us that have gone through awakenings. It's a beautiful experience. It has its highs and its lows, but overall, the things that you see, you know, it expands you. It gives you a higher perspective in seeing things. And at the root of all of this, you know, I've been reminded of kindness, compassion, and grace, because a lot of individuals don't realize the indoctrination of humanity specifically. A lot of things that were taught to us were not truths. And I have always kept that at the front part of my mind. No matter if I was 5 years old, if I was 9 years old, if I was 12 years old, I always knew to question what is being presented to me as truths. Always. And that is why I have been chosen for this anointing to be in tune with Christ consciousness. You see, humanity is rising, and the consciousness of humanity is rising as well. There's a shift taking place on the planet, and it has been for some time now, and it's going to continue. You know, there's going to be another wave of individuals like myself and others before me that are going to go through awakenings. And I just want people to know that they are not alone on these journeys. And remember to give yourselves grace. Remember to be kind to yourselves. Remember to have compassion, because in this day and age, like I said before on previous episodes, it is very overwhelming at the rate in which we're having to unlearn and relearn in this lifetime. Having to unprogram yourselves is a real thing, you know, reconstructing the way your mind thinks. I've always spoke about the mind. I've always been in tune with the way I think at times. And I know I went a little bit all over. I had said something earlier in the episode about the contradictions when it came to certain people's approaches to spirituality. And I've seen a theme of individuals who say things to the extent of what the comedian said, you know, recently in the controversial video. And it made me question, just like the other spiritualists, how was her approach and how are others' approaches to where they are now being converted into religion in certain ways, you know? The issue that I have, because I've seen a theme of this happening where people will start on this walk, you know, law of attraction, manifesting, and they know about certain things, you know, in regards to sacred tools, because a crystal is something that is sacred and it is a tool in essence. It is a mineral. It is an energy. It provides something, and these somethings are sacred. And like I said, for me on this journey, I didn't have the luxury of saying, you know, oh, I want to be spiritual and I'm just going to go on this journey and I'm going to go get me a crystal and I'm going to go get this, some sage, you know, that wasn't my case. It did not happen that way. It happened very much naturally. When I had my awakening in 2021, my grandmother came to visit me in the springtime specifically. This is when I started going through changes early. And it's crazy because I had been going through changes already spiritually prior to 2021, because I would see synchronicities and numbers, even down to the apartment I lived in. I'm talking, I was like, yo, God is funny. And it just kept happening in that sequence. And I could no longer get away from it. Like even now, most times when I look at my phone or I look at the time, it's repeating numbers. I can't get away from it now. I miss the days when I would see times like 12:37. 12:37, 1:37. It's not like that no more. It's not like that anymore. I can't escape it. But my experience, like I said, not to go all over, my grandmother came to visit me in the spring. And I remember it so vividly. I said, Grandmama, I'm tired. I was like, I think, you know, I should take a nap. She said, well, Kamitria, if you're tired, baby, go to sleep. Go to sleep. I got the baby. You know, I'm going to watch him. Get you some rest. So I did that. And when I went to sleep, it was daylight. And when I woke up, it was dark. It was dark. Now, granted, I went to sleep later in the evening, later that day. I want to say maybe it had to been like 6 or something. And I woke up maybe around like 8 or 9. And when I woke up, I had so many, you know, notifications. And I just remember after I woke up from that nap, Kamitria was different. I got on the phone. I had, it was like maybe 5 of us on FaceTime. And all of a sudden, I was like, y'all, I just got a download. And they was like, what is she talking about? Like, is she going crazy? And that was the first thing I got that for an entire weekend. Like the downloads kept coming. I didn't even know. I never even used this type of verbiage. So it's like the people that I was encountering and interacting with at that time, they knew, because they saw me changing in real time. And some people thought I lost my mind, but to be honest, I didn't give a fuck because I knew what was up. I knew what was up. Like I couldn't explain certain things to certain individuals. And so, but I'm sharing all of that to say that I think it's going to be important moving forward for people that have so much to say about spirituality and how they reconverted to religion. I really want these individuals to take the time to talk about their journeys. How were you introduced? Because for me, the theme that I'd seen across the board was people joining spirituality for ulterior motives, wanting to play God. The girls that do the love spells and things of that nature, and rituals that are dark. Because I want to emphasize dark, because a lot of people think that when you say rituals, it's very witchy in essence. And for me personally, I'm not really with the wicked woo woo shit. I'm not with it. And that's no disrespect to those in the community that have certain practices and beliefs in the spiritual community. I want to be very mindful about that. But when I speak about rituals, because I say rituals often, I have a rising ritual, I have a nightly ritual, I have daily rituals, okay? Some people have skin routine rituals, okay? Like let's emphasize and expand here on our vocabulary and the meanings of these words and stop demonizing things. But I digress. I really think that's going to be important in conversation, because I've seen a theme once again of people converting back to religion after the fact. Maybe after a backfire, because I've seen that too with my own personal eyes. I've had people share things with me on this journey about the things that they've done. And it's like, wow, people really do this? And that's another thing that I was awakened to. And I think I've spoken about that previously on my episodes in regards to things that I've awakened to on this journey, very dark things. Hence why God guided me to separate myself, because I was around individuals. Some people I did not know they had knowledge of this realm as well. But see, for me, in real time, people saw me transforming. I have never in my life went out to get a spell, to put on someone, to control someone, to what's another one I heard? Oh God, come to me. Come to me spell. That took me out of here, because I'm like, people are really doing this. They really shop. I've literally gone to spiritual shops. And, because on this journey, there's so many new things. And God has guided me through all of this. And a lot of it's for, my spiritual hygiene and protecting my energy. So, the things that I've gone to purchase are things such as sage, incense, crystals. I have certain, things to that degree. But when you go to certain places, and I also had to be careful about the places that I shopped. That was also another awakening. There's been times where God has said, okay, no, don't shop there, because they have a whole nother agenda. They have an entirely different agenda. And you can see it. If you have the spirit of discernment with you, it will lead you, and it will lead you the right ways. You will know when to go or when to stay, when to spend money, when to keep it in your pockets, when to be around somebody, and when you need to go. You're going to know that for sure when it comes to discernment. And like I said, I just want to bring it full circle in regards to that sense of knowledge. It's going to be very important for people to really see these things in full transparency. Because another thing that I've had a problem with on this journey, as I've seen people talk about converting from spirituality back to religion, Christianity specifically, these same individuals will go back to the church And because of their approach to spirituality, which some of them like to keep it very quiet, and then they like to talk about all of the demonizing things. They like to demonize things, and this started happening and that started happening, and those rocks, those crystals were evil. Meditation was evil. Doing yoga was evil. And you don't do these things if you're not if you're not in alignment. And I'm just like, are people serious right now? Tell your truth. Speak your truth. Tell the people why you're really running back to the altar. Tell them why you're really running back to the churches. Tell them about the backfires. Tell them about the work that you've done behind the scenes with spirituality, with trying to attract things, law of attraction. That's why all of these things really blew my mind, because during the times that I was embarking on that walk with God, I was manifesting, but never have I ever I never even stepped foot into a spiritual, store during that time. I wasn't even aware of the verbiage. I wasn't even aware of what sage was. I got introduced to sage in 2021 specifically, and I was gifted it by my family. And it had a lot to do with protection. And at that time, I had took a trip and I came back with a gift. And I started to study the things about what it meant. Sage comes from the earth, and people tend to demonize it. And I'm just like, if people would take the opportunity to learn and not be so, oh no, I can't look at that. I can't see that. I won't even go into it. Nope. Close my ears, eyes, and my mind. By all means, you have free will to do those things. But sit with that. Don't crucify the next person because they have the willingness to be open. And I got silent for a reason, because these things are serious. Those tools, and I say tools because all of these things that I mentioned, crystals, sage, incense, reading the knowledge, even down to certain subjects that are esoteric in nature. People demonize these things. And I just think it's very baffling and contradicting. But moving further along, wow, 11:11 on the timer as I said that. But I really, just to move along with the other reason, because I feel like I've been kind of babbling along in regards to the subjects. But like I said, this all has to do with compassion, kindness, and grace in essence. Because although I don't like the things that I have heard and I have seen, it's been a theme over the past few years. You see how I am speaking. I'm not coming for these people and, condemning or necessarily casting judgment in that essence. I just see in transparency, and I see clearly, and my heart has grown bigger once again. I have so much more compassion for souls that are lost to a certain degree and they don't have that conscious understanding. Hence why in my previous episodes, I would say, although people would challenge me and attempt to disrespect me on this journey, I don't ever go out of my way to belittle another person due to their level of consciousness or unconsciousness. I have literally crossed paths with people that take my verbiage as an insult to whatever it is that they're carrying. I may say certain words that may make them feel a way. And that's not my intention any day. I never been one to talk as if I'm above or I'm better than and the next person is less than, due to knowledge. Like people love to project, and I'm just so glad that I have the resilience, I have the courage and the mindfulness when it comes to standing up for myself, especially in this era. A lot of people really thought that Demetria was going to turn vegetable after, I went through the things that I went through over the past few years. Now, granted, I did have some moments where there were a lot of lows, dark night of the soul. And a lot of people don't know about that. I'm going to share something real quick about the dark night of the soul. Now, I embarked on my dark night of the soul towards the end of 2021. And I'll never forget, it was during the winter or it was getting ready to be winter. And I just remember going through that phase. That was one of the most toughest parts of the spiritual journey because, like I said, it has many highs and lows. A lot of people only like to highlight the light and love, but no, this shit get dark night of the soul. And when I went through that phase of it, oh, was it dark? I was afraid because I had never faced the level of things that I had to face. Shadow work. Very much shadow work. I will never forget. I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the store. I went to a few stores actually. And I had went to the beauty supply store specifically. And when I started going through this journey, I began to carry myself in a specific way, especially when I went through the dark night of the soul. I used to have this trench looking coat that I used to wear, and it was very long, and I'm a very short woman. And so the trench coat, people would have their say so and things of that nature, but I don't care. I went into the beauty supply store and I had the coat on, and I put the hoodie on, and I don't know if I had it on from the time that I walked in the store or like after, I can't remember. But all I know is I had my coat on and you could see my face and things of that nature. And you could see like parts of my hands and things of that nature, like at the ends of the coat. And I remember getting to the register to pay for my items. And there was a woman who was of Asian descent. And she kept looking at me and trying to make eye contact with me specifically. So I ended up, because I'm not one to look away like that, but because I know how intense it can get with looking somebody in their eyes. The eyes hold, the code to the soul. So I'm very mindful when I'm looking into the eyes of other individuals. And so I felt her energy at the counter, and she greeted me with a smile and everything. So at that moment, I locked eyes with her. And I saw that, her eyes moved from my eyes to my hands. And so she saw my tattoo work and things of that nature. And she was like, oh my God, you too? And I was like, excuse me? And she was like, your tattoos. She was like, the numbers, the bird. She was like, are you like in tune? Are you tapped in? And I couldn't believe me and this girl was having this moment. And those type of beauty supply shops, they're owned, like family owned. So she had her grandmother sitting behind the counter while she was taking care of me at the register. And me and her just was having this back and forth engagement in regards to, what she was seeing with me and what she saw in me in that moment. She was like, your energy. She was like, you have beautiful energy. She was like, I was like, yeah, I've been going through changes. I was like, I just tatted some things because I was trying to keep it very minimal, but this girl was tapped in as well and I couldn't shake it. I saw her jewelry as well, and it was very sacred and symbolic in nature. So she began to ask me things, and she was from a completely different walk. Like I said, she was of Asian descent, and she let me know. She was like, I have been going through the dark night of the soul. When I tell y'all, I stopped in my tracks. Like I just stopped moving everything, paused. Cause I'm like, what did you just say? Dark night of the soul. And I just told y'all, when I walked into the beauty supply store, I'm already knowing the journey that I'm on. hence why I'm carrying myself the way that I am, because a lot of people around me and society, with the rest of humanity, they're not having this same experience. This is very esoteric. This is very ethereal. I am having an outer body experience. I am in so many realms all at once. And so I carried myself in a certain way. And to know that this girl was also on that journey, and she didn't have like that certain demeanor like I did, because it was very much new to me and it was new to her as well. But it just, all I know is when I had that encounter with her, I was able to relax a little bit more. Like my nervous system felt more peace, because I'm like, it's really a selected few of us on the planet that are experiencing awakenings. And so I walked out of that store that day, and me and her, for the time being, like every time I would see her, I would be like, how you doing? How's your journey? And each time we both would see each other, we'd both be ascending with different verbiage. Like she too knew what a download was. And that, like when people understand my verbiage at this time in my life, oh my goodness, I'm like a kid that got ice cream. I'm very excited because I have been around so many that are in slumber, like right now as we speak. It's been very hard to connect to people at certain points on this journey, because now I see what it means to not be in touch or be in tune with ourselves as human beings. Those of us that have been chosen to go through these awakenings, to break these generational curses, to face and work through our shadow work, like this is a blessing. Although, like I said, it has highs and lows, it is very much so a blessing. But back to the episode, I just wanted to share that moment because it was a moment that I'll never forget on this journey. And I'm going to move along to the next thing that I wanted to say. And I'm going to go ahead and bring this episode to an end, because I feel like I touched on most of the things that I wanted to say in regards to the importance of having grace, compassion, and kindness for individuals, because there are going to be moments when it's needed. We need it now as humanity. And although some people aren't there consciously yet, some souls are very much lost in a sense, I still have the biggest heart for compassion. Even in mistakes. The most important thing for people like that, and for the people that are on this journey that tend to come off in the ways that I spoke about in this episode, the most beautiful thing about those individuals is when they come to a place of higher consciousness and they have the ability to have accountability for their actions. That's beautiful. That is what you call true ascension, true accountability. And that's why my heart had begun growing. And I hope that through that experience with the comedian that we all got to see, or for those of you that were aware that got to see, this will be a very enlightening and teachable moment for not only her, but for many beings that have that same way of thinking. And I just encourage those of you who are on the journey, the sacred journey specifically, who also encounter individuals and have unfortunately experienced things where people have set the tone with you and say, you know what, I don't like your spirituality. I don't like I find it very, disturbing. I'm not interested. Those are very much blatant moments and opportunities that God gives us to say, okay, hey, I'm no longer in alignment with this individual. And then I radically accept. I radically accept, even though as someone that is aware that I'm having a human experience, yes, sometimes these things hurt. But the beautiful thing about me, I'm going to laugh. And I'm always going to do that. Demetria is always going to laugh. I don't give a damn who's confused, who's lost, who think I'm supposed to be big mad, who think I'm supposed to be big sad. guarantee you, I'm going to find a way to motherfucking laugh. I'm going to find a way to laugh because better laugh than cry. And I cry too. I'm going to cry too. That's something I'm going to say as well. I'm going to cry too. Yes, I am. I'm going to cry too. I'm going to cry too. Because I'm not finna let that stuff, stay inside of me. I don't like feelings that just linger around, especially sad feelings. Like, you gotta go. And most times when I get done crying, I be talking again and I be feeling nice again. So, I'm saying all that to say for those of you that are on the journey and, we embark on this journey and we cross paths with people that have that mindset, have that level of unconsciousness, please remember to have grace, compassion, and kindness. That doesn't mean you have to go out of your way to extend those things. You can extend it from an energetic space. We don't have to engage. We don't have to conversate. We don't have to address. And it doesn't have to be confrontational. See people where they are on their journeys and learn to radically accept and keep it moving. Because that is an opportunity that God is giving you and me to see that us and the other individuals are no longer aligning. And that is okay, That's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end this episode. I hope that you all have enjoyed my perspectives in regards to the importance of having grace, compassion, and kindness for one another on this planet. I hope that it resonated with those that it needed to. And if it gave you some broader views on things that, and I had no intentions to offend anybody with this message, as I know it comes with a lot of responsibility when you hold this amount of knowledge. It comes with great responsibility. So I want to be very mindful. And I'll say it again. I have nothing against religion or other religions. I have respect for everyone on their walk. All I ask for is the reciprocity in that respect and that honoring. That's all. That's it. Until next time, loves, stay genuine. Peace.